A story that I think is most telling does not give credit to George W. Bush. In fact, it does the opposite, and it's regarding Israel as well. And that's the story that Ehud Olmert, the Prime Minister of Israel, tells. Olmert says that he called President Bush right before the UN was going to vote on a ceasefire. Now, the ceasefire was negotiated by Condoleezza Rice, the United States Secretary of State. And, of course, since she negotiated and she was the author of it and she pushed it through the UN, on the Security Council, she was going to vote yes, right? It's our plan. Ehud Olmert gets on the line, the Prime Minister of Israel, and says to Bush, hey, you know what? I don't like that. I'm not in favor of a ceasefire. I want to keep attacking and keep killing people in Gaza Strip. Some are going to say justifiably, some are going to say unjustifiably, but that was his intention. I need more death. And so they said to him, I'm sorry, Prime Minister, but President Bush is literally in the middle of a speech in Philadelphia. He said, I don't give a damn what he's in the middle of. You get me President Bush on the line right now. And the U.S. bowed their heads, and they said, yes, sir, right away, sir. I forgot who I was talking to. Obviously, you're the boss. So I will go ahead and interrupt the speech. And they did. Bush stopped in the middle of his speech, took the call from Olmert, and Olmert said, that's it. You are not to allow your Secretary of State to vote for the resolution she authored. She has to abstain on it. And what did President Bush do? We're in charge, right? We're the most powerful country in the world. Apparently we're not. Apparently Israel is. No, he bowed his head and he said, I'm sorry, Mr. Prime Minister. Absolutely, sir. Right away, sir. I will stop Condoleezza Rice from doing that. And she had to walk in there absolutely embarrassed. She tried to convince everybody to go along with this resolution. And then in the end, she comes and basically votes against her own resolution by abstaining. And people are like, what the hell? Why did you just talk to us for all this time to try to convince us that this ceasefire resolution was going to work? And then you come and vote against it. Why? Because we had to bow our heads. Israel's in charge. We're not in charge. Now, look, I've heard people say that many times, and I thought it was an exaggeration. I thought it was unfair. And I was worried about the source of those kind of comments. Because when you talk about, Israel, a Jewish state being in charge, etc., I'm worried about anti-Semitism. Because people who sometimes are anti-Semitic will say things like that, like, oh, the Jews secretly run everything. And I'm worried about it, and that's why I wouldn't say it in the past. But here we have the Prime Minister of Israel telling us himself, absolutely, we're in charge. And George Bush is not the boss of me. I'm the boss of George Bush. I tell him when to stop making a speech. I tell him to get his ass on the phone. I tell him how to vote, and he does it. Secretary of State came up with a resolution. I don't give a damn. She'll vote against her own resolution. We're the boss. Well, I mean, the proof is it. Now, that doesn't mean anything about Jews, and I don't want people to make those kind of wrong assumptions, because that drives me crazy, okay? This isn't about that, all right? But when you're looking at the reality of who runs what, does Israel follow U.S. orders? Yes, to some degree, as the story I told you earlier. George Bush said you are not to bomb Iran, and they didn't do it, okay? But does the U.S. follow Israel's orders? Abso-frickin-lutely. If they say, hey, don't do this, the Bush doesn't do it. It's unbelievable. You think any other ally has that kind of power over the U.S.? Not even close. Imagine Turkey, second largest army in NATO. Huge, important ally in the Middle East for Turkey. Says, the Prime Minister of Turkey gets on the phone and says, hey, get Bush on the line. I don't give a damn what he's doing. Hey, Bush, this is how you're going to vote in the UN. Nobody has that kind of power outside of Israel. Why does Israel have that kind of power? That's a whole separate question, man.